All right, so this one. Hello, everybody. I hope you enjoy this video because it's kind of a doozy. It might be a little bit long, but that's quite all right. I don't mind so long as I get out of the full context and let everybody know what's going on with this particular subject. So, we're going to discuss immigration. Since it seems to be coming back and forth between politicians and between presidents' fault that everybody's being thrown in detention centers, to Mexico literally starving people because they're in detention centers because they're fleeing violence and poverty. I don't know how you can flee poverty unless, of course, the country you're in is so extremely dirt poor that they literally can't feed anybody. Hello, Venezuela. By the way, it was a good move for Trump to stand by Venezuela's people and not necessarily Maduro, whereas Sanders stands by Maduro, the person that put people in poverty. If anybody's been paying attention, they've been socialist for quite a while. In fact, most of the migrants that have decided to go straight across Mexico are from socialist countries. Just keep that in mind when you want to do that to America. Go fuck yourself. Socialism is evil. And one of these days I'll actually do the video on that. But no, this is about immigration in particular, and I'm talking about legal immigration, not illegal immigration, but legal immigration. And the reason why I want to discuss it, because it's going to lead into my next video, and I think there's some good valid points here. So, how does our legal system, if you will, work when it comes to immigration? Well, the last actual immigration reform that we've had was in 1986, according to Wikipedia, if you can trust it as far as you can throw it. And that was done by Ronald Reagan, basically. It put the mess in place that we have now. Now, there's been various reform acts that have been done since then. 2014, I think, was the last one, but it basically said if you're illegal coming across, the penalties for becoming an illegal alien are severe and more severely treated, as it were. And I can understand why that would be the case, because the people that decided to just drift right into our country actually came from Canada and not from Mexico. But they could have easily come from Mexico, and some of the terrorists have. It's because it's easy to cross our borders, and that is the sad truth. But I digress. I'm referring to legal immigration and as the system stands now. So let me kind of spell out for you how this system works, why I don't think anybody's willing to change it, and why they keep just blaming Trump for this. And I'll get into that in a second. But I want to really lay out, give you a foundation of how our sort of legal system for immigration. One of the reasons I wouldn't trust government with making spoons, let alone any other real policy reform at this point in time, when they're too busy jerking each other off over who's the more morally righteous person. Hence why Biden won't get elected. Okay, I'm just totally just going all over the place. So let's get into it. Well, our first legal problem is that we are a lottery country. So each country has a delegated 7% that they're allowed to immigrate into our country. So what happens in that lottery system? Essentially, for you to get a visa to come into this country, you have to come from a country that has low population to actually make it through immigration the first time around. You can get past the lottery using lawyers and legal fees and paying off, basically, is what you're doing. You're paying people to work through the system to get you through first. Some companies actually will pay for this. India particularly has a lot of companies that will pay the right people, not necessarily payoffs, but I'm talking like lawyers to get you through the system faster, that type of thing. Regardless, there is a 7% lottery per country. So if you have a high dense population like India, for example, the queue right now, let's see, I have the notes here. It would take you 151 years, given the queue right now, because there's over 200,000 people waiting to be accepted into the visa program from India. But if you came from the Philippines, Venezuela has a low population, any other low population or low queued place where, immigration is not happening as much, say The UK, for example. Not a whole lot of people coming here from the UK because living conditions are similar. Same with Australia. Living conditions similar. Japan, living conditions better or worse, depending. I mean, there's some weird social things that go on there, but you get the idea. The less immigration you have, the easier it is for you to get through immigration because they only allow 7% through per country, depending on the countries. The Muslim ban, as it was called, or the travel ban, was targeted at countries that had known terrorists. Yes, Islam is a religion of terror and immoral peace, if you want to call it that. But that is neither here nor there. They still, if they want to come legally, would have a 7% window. And that's it. Now, on top of that, let's go into the paperwork. That even gets weirder and more painful. For the first time, for an H1, which is essentially a work visa that's supposed to last a pretty long time, and an L1, well, H1 first. The H1 visa is $11,000 to process. You have to pay upfront $11,000 to get an H1 visa, assuming that you get approved through that 7% lottery from that country. Now, the L1 visa, which is one where you transfer from one country to the next, so you're kind of shifting countries, like you have a visa at one country, like the UK, for example, or Canada, and you want to transfer that visa to the United States, that's $14,000 upfront before you can transfer, assuming that it's accepted, which can take an ass-long time to happen. Now, renewals. Every renewal is based on immigration discretion. So the immigration office, the Department of Immigration, can make you renew it every month, can make you renew it every 6 months, every year, depending on what the political situation is with per country. It's really at the discretion of the office. They can do whatever the hell they want, and they can charge you basically for renewal $6,000 every time you have to renew your visa. So if you're coming from Canada, if you're coming from India, if you're coming from any of those countries that have a high immigration rate into the United States, if you have to renew your visa every 6 months, you are paying $6,000 every 6 months. You might as well save your money because you're going to have to pay this to stay in the country. If your visa expires, you either voluntarily deport yourself or you get deported by your company. I actually have an employee that had to go through this, and I'll get to his situation in a second because it's a nightmare situation that often happens because of the system that we have. So you can, if you want to wait, renewals can take anywhere from 8 to 10 months to process, and by process I mean make a decision. So you won't know if your renewal had been completed for 8 to 10 months. So if you know that you're up in 6 months, you need to file 8 months ahead of that date that you have a 6-month visa. So if you already got your visa approved and you know that it's going to expire in 6 months, you should have applied for your approval for renewal 2 months prior to your approval, assuming you got approved. Isn't that amazing? It can go quicker. You can pay for the express processing, but that's been suspended because of how many visas they are now processing, and there's a shit ton of them. We put it as SLA requirements, service level agreements, as a quip for anybody that's a business person. Basically, the Department of Immigration can't hit their SLA, which is to approve visas within a timely manner. So it takes them 8 to 10 months to actually approve it because they're a shit system. But if you could get express processing, it takes 2 weeks to respond. That 2 weeks is pretty damn quick, but usually what happens is within a week, within 7 days, you're now requested for further evidence. And if you don't provide sufficient evidence, your visa is denied. Then you go back home to start the process all over again. Now you'll be put in front of the queue because you had a previous visa and all that fun stuff, so there's a way to process it and get it a little bit faster. This is assuming that the company you work for, assuming you have some sponsorship to get over here, will help you with the processing fees shut up, phone, to get over here. Because either that or you're paying it out of pocket. So the what's her name, Barbara for U2C, she's paying all this out of pocket because she had a student visa which expired, and so she has to do all this out of pocket, which is why she went back to her country, which is a small population, which means she'll process fairly quickly on that 7%. Plus, she already had a previous visa, which allows her to get over here quicker. So all donations to her basically will help her get her ass back over into the United States, where Slovenia's uber progressive for apparently. Like, she's been telling some horror stories. It's amazing. Okay. Now, this entire process, 8 to 10 months reprocessing, $6,000 every renewal, will continue for a period of about 2 years. Within this process, you immediately apply for a green card once you got your visa, assuming that's what you want, right? So if you apply for your green card, it can take up to 2 years for that to process. In that process of 2 years, you must abide by all laws, stay in good settlement. You can't be so much as a traffic violation at that point. A little nuance to this position. Every time you have to renew your visa, you also have to renew your driver's license. So the state gets a little cut too. Every single time you renew your visa and you get your visa documentation, your paperwork, you then have to go straight to the DMV to renew your license. Between that time that your visa had expired, you are not legal to drive because your driver's license has expired along with your visa. So the states get a little cut from this little conundrum as well. Makes it amazing. So it's like Texas, I think it's like $200, $300 to renew or redo your license, I think. It's rather expensive. Other states, more or less, depending. But essentially, you are renewing your driver's license every 6 months on top of renewing your visa, just to add a little pain to the punishment. Repeat the process every 2 years. And it can take up to 15 years for your green card to be approved so that you can now be a permanent resident green card holder. 15 years, approximately. That's how long it's been taking for most people at this present time. My wife, who jumped on the early train to this, she came over here in 1982? No, 84. Before these laws came into place, whereas she could get a permanent resident green card for being a minor accompanied by somebody with a visa/citizenship, because you could marry someone here and claim your citizenship. And then once you got your citizenship, you'd go remarry, that kind of fun stuff. That way you could get in shoehorned through marriage. They did away with all that. You can't do that. Now it's illegal. It's quite the opposite of what it used to be. So after your green card, you now can file for citizenship. However, citizenship applications take 5 years. Between the time you get your green card and that 5-year waiting period, you cannot leave the country for 5 years, for more than 6 months. If you were to go on vacation, if you had a death in the family, say you had to travel somewhere else for business, say you travel a lot for business for that matter. If you're out of the States for a consecutive 6-month period, your green card is now revoked and you're back to applying for a visa at whatever country you happen to be in when it declines. From that country, you must then reapply and hopefully you get accepted, yada, yada, yada. The situation starts all over again. Now, we're already 14 minutes in and I haven't even gotten to the best part yet. So, once you get your citizenship, you have to wait. Or no, you can get your citizenship and then the game is over. But you also have to relinquish your citizenship from your origin country. So if you came from Singapore, India, China, wherever, you must now relinquish your citizenship to that country. So if you want dual citizenship, which is available to certain countries and not others, you must then apply for dual citizenship with the previous country and go through their immigration process to get citizenship with them. This is something my mother-in-law did, actually. She has dual citizenship with the Philippines and United States. And to get that, she had to get citizenship here first, prior to these insane laws from 1986. Thank you, Ronald Reagan. dumbass. Then you would have to apply for citizenship at the Philippines, requesting for dual citizenship, assuming that both countries are in good standing with one another. So if escalation happens, decline in political leanings, whatever, if the politics shifts, your citizenship will then be forfeit with one or both countries. Fun for you, right? So here's the kicker. The higher the population of the origin country you're from, the longer your waiting period is. As I mentioned before, India has 151 years on average, if somebody did the math, of people coming in, because there's over 200,000 people trying to come to this country in this system currently. And only 7% of 200,000 are allowed in at any given time per year because of the lottery system. So that is the whole legal process that we have right now. So if you can imagine being one of these people that went through this shit for at least 15 years trying to get their citizenship straightened away and whatnot, 15 years is a long ass time. Maybe you've started a family already. Maybe you've bought property. Maybe you've done a lot of things. Green card holders, if you stop there and don't move forward, do not get to gain the benefits that non-green or citizens do. For example, if they retire here after 15 years of waiting for their citizenship and their green card and their visa, going through the whole process, which could take up to 20 years just to get done, if you don't get your citizenship by the time you retire, which is, I mean, you're putting in half of your life into just coming into this country. Some countries have it easier than others, like with Canada, it's so easy. With other countries across the seas in particular, not so much. Regardless, let's say you started a family. Your child is born here. He is a natural citizen, or she, at that point. Your child is now a citizen, but if you have your visa revoked for whatever reason, now have to get a passport for your child and a visa for your child to then go back to your origin country to reapply for your visa while your child is a citizen of the United States and doesn't have to do shit. They're just here. They used to be called anchor babies, but then those laws were abolished. Pretty much, Trump abolished all the executive orders that were given between Reagan and now that destroyed any path forward for most of these people, including what they call the dreamers, which are basically kids born after 86, essentially millennials at this point, college students, who seem to think that they're entitled to be here even though their parents came here illegally, or didn't do the proper paperwork, or maybe their visas expired, you name it. There's a bunch of reasons why they're here and they shouldn't be. But let me put it that way. Listen to that situation. I know many people in this situation. Several of them work for me. Imagine being in that situation and knowing that a bunch of people just walk right across the border, don't have to pay for shit. They don't pay taxes because they're illegal. There is nothing for them to file taxes against. No Social Security, no nothing. So they pay nothing into the system. However, they can apply for welfare, they can apply for food stamps, they can apply for heat, which is the gas and sewage and electrical, to keep your lights on, and internet now, I believe it's covered under there. They can apply for all those in sanctuary cities to where the taxpayers, including these immigrants who have done everything right, are paying for. So insult to injury, they come here, take our shit that we give out for a safety net for ourselves for free. They pay no taxes because there's nothing to pay taxes against because they don't have a Social Security card, and they get paid under the table for all their job and their work and their welfare. All of that is what the Democratic Party wants for its people. Open borders, let them in. You'd have to change the law for that to happen. And knowing the situations that I've outlined, Trump, like I said, we'll get to, did something smart. He abolished all the previous executive orders, meaning that we're back to ground zero where Ronald Reagan fucked up and made and signed this atrocious debauchery of immigration. Before, is because we didn't have that many jobs. Now that the tech industry boomed and we got a lot of interesting engineering and whatnot coming through, our trade deals are set for open borders. We're trying to play nice with the global economy, if you will. Most companies have gone global because internet made that possible. Put that situation on yourself. You're in the middle and you're doing everything legal, and then some illegals just walk across the country, get paid less, kind of jab at your doing everything right, basically cut in line, get the benefits that you're paying for because you have a legal job with a visa, which means you're paying taxes in the United States and paying for their free shit. Essentially, they came in to get free shit. That's our situation right now. And like I said, Trump did something smart with abolishing this. But here's the kicker. Here's the thing that annoys the living shit out of me. The Democrats and the Republicans both don't want to touch this. Do you know why? I just listed off 4 or 5 reasons why. 14,000 per application. We have 1 million people coming in a year. 10,000 per H1. I-1 transfers, 14,000. So let's give it $12,000 roughly. 1 million times over. On top of that, every 6 months, or maybe more frequently, depending on where you're from, $6,000 every single 6 months. On top of that, lawyers and whatnot, they benefit from this debauchery of justice as well. And they take their cut, maybe $1,000, $2,000 to pay for them. What else was there? How much money? Come on, Surface, show me. The green card was another $5,000. And let's say you work for a company that pays for the express processing because you kind of have to stay here to work. $1,500 on top of that. So think about that. 2 years for the green card to be approved. So a minimum of 2 years, let's say you renew every 6 months, $6,000, $12,000 a year, $24,000 times 1 million. That's how much they are making off immigration. The government is making off of immigration because all that money goes to the coffers of the federal government. They're making money off of the immigration. Why else would they not want to touch it? It is a cash cow at this point. So many people want to come here because we're a capitalist system and have the most successful rate of growth ever, especially lately. Silicon Valley is the hub of tech godhood. I mean, Twitter, Google, Facebook, all of them are here. Of course people want to come here. They want to work at some of the best global companies. You don't hear of what do you got? T-Series? They're a garbage company tied to crazy shit. Just look at the shit that PewDiePie went through for them. What else you got in the other countries? TikTok in China? Japan, Samsung? Panasonic? There's some car manufacturing there. I mean, there's some other places you can go, but I mean, we have the most landmass and the most opportunity. Japan is a already densely populated area. There's not going to be much opportunity for anybody that's not Japanese. And if you don't speak the language, you're truly fucked. But put yourself in those shoes, man. How pissed off would you be if somebody just walked across the countryside and got paid under the table, which means they don't have to pay taxes, but then they get the welfare and other benefits that you pay for? So not only do they not pay into the system, which hikes inflation and wages here, and actually does quasi take jobs out of people, because who the hell wants to pay a $15 minimum wage when I can pay a illegal immigrant $5 an hour to do the same job? And nobody has to be the wiser. I mean, seriously. All they have to do is, the only time they're going to find something out is somebody reports it. That whole system is messed up, and trying to put the nail on the head here, because I'm rambling a little bit. Trump's immigration reform and the push thereof should happen. Democrats want to do tiny steps just to appease their voter base. the little pieces, the front pieces, the things that the end voters will see and be happy with so that they can increase their voter registration. That's what they're after. It doesn't have anything to do with the visa process, the green card process, the fees that are associated with it, which are kind of exorbitantly high. None of that. They don't want to touch any of it. And the Republicans kind of want to touch it, but not really, because they also know that this is a massive moneymaker for the federal government. So they want to reform it to make it more about a meritocracy. But I haven't heard a single good proposal from either party. I've heard argues and bickering and whatnot. But here's the fun part. Everybody in the Democratic Party in particular seems to think that they can blame Trump for immigration reform. Well, guess what? Bills don't start with the president. They start with the Senate. They start with the House. Either or. Then they go through committee and all that fun stuff. You remember that song? I'm just a bill on Capitol Hill. That shit? That's the process that needs to happen. So somebody needs to introduce a immigration reform bill and then do something about it. We have multiple senators running for presidency. 22 total Democratic nominees thinking that they're the bee's knees. They're the shit when it comes to all this. I want to hear from them an exact proposal. An exact proposal. Not lip service and words and that's a great question bullshit. No, I want to hear what you propose to fix in this system that would improve the lives of those trying to immigrate, that would make it easier tracks for immigration to countries that we have good political ties with, and that would make the lives easier of those that are already here. How are you going to increase the processing of the green card? How are you going to increase the processing of the visa? How will you lower the cost of actually applying for a visa? Not from $10,000, $1,000 I could see, maybe $2,000. I mean, that's somewhat affordable. Not really, but I mean, usually people coming over here have high-skilled work, so they could probably afford it. Yeah, I think the smartest thing Trump did, even though it makes him look like a giant asshole, is kill all the previous executive orders. Executive orders are not laws. They should not be treated as laws. They are an extension to get things done when no one wants to do shit. That doesn't mean Congress can sit on their ass and rely on executive orders, because they are not law. Congress, House and Senate, those that think they can run the country at this point in time, are the ones that are completely 100% responsible for the immigration system that we have today. Neither side is willing to negotiate something that will fix this system. And if they try to fix the system, chances are they're going to make it worse rather than better. However, I do see a little bit of hope in that. You could probably get a better system if they were to both get what they wanted and both leave out what they don't want. Meaning that the Republicans want a meritocratic system where people can come in here based on their merits. The Democrats want people to come in here from every place and make it easier to immigrate. Well, there's plenty of ways that they can do that. Increase the processing time by reducing the man hours required for background checks from countries that we trust. Lowering the cost. Removing the lottery system would be another good example of what they can and cannot do. They could remove that lottery system based on merit alone. We have 200,000 applicants from this country. How many can we accommodate and for where? Just because they applied for a visa doesn't necessarily mean that they need one. Who already has a job waiting here? That's a better question. Then they can easily immigrate. Would be a hell of a lot easier. Plus, local, state, and federal economies would benefit from people paying taxes here rather than living in other countries and paying their taxes, while our companies, who get out of taxes, unfortunately, are paying those people in wages in their country and paying for their taxes in those countries. But yes, I think the worst thing that Trump has in this situation is that both Senate and Congress, or Senate and House, the Congress, are basically blaming him because he did abolish all of the executive orders. And they're playing a word game. They're like, oh no, it's his fault. No, it is your fault. It is Congress's fault that they haven't done shit about this. It's their job and responsibility to fix this situation. And until I hear invalid immigration reform, which is one of the top 3 items of this country at this point in time, I don't want to hear shit from them. I don't want to hear platitudes. I don't want to hear socialism. I don't want to hear none of that. I don't want to hear the Green New Deal. I don't want to hear any of that shit. I want to hear a comprehensive, no nonsense, straight up fix for this bullshit. Because it affects people that I know. It affects the lives of people I know. I know a few people that are actually illegal at this point because their visa expired. For them to go get their visa, they'd have to go to a country like Honduras or Venezuela or El Salvador. You know, those places that are kind of going absolutely fucking batshit crazy right now with borderline civil war. They'd have to go there to get their visa renewed. I know for a fact the ones that had visa here and then they expired, they're like, fuck that, I ain't going back there until it calms down. They're socialist countries. No socialist government is going to give up their power once they have it. They never do. So this transition from socialism to communism is an outright pipe dream. But one of my future videos, I'm going to go into socialism as a comprehensive philosophical point and demonstrate why it'll always fail. It'll never work, ever. Anyways, that's all I have for now. I hope this was eye-opener for you. A little bit educational, because this kind of shit is annoying. I'm sick of seeing them pass the buck. I'm sick of seeing them pointing the finger at each other and saying, oh, it's his fault. It's Trump's fault. It's always Trump's fault. Look at what they're doing. Oh, they're separating families at the border. Blue, blue, blue. Oh, poor pity me. Why don't you pass a fucking law to fix it? Because these are laws that have been on the books since '86, you assholes. Anyways. Yeah, like, subscribe, do all that shit. I want to grow this platform and this channel. I want to make a transition in life, and I'm going to make this happen through this means. So I hope you enjoyed this. This is a rather long one. Probably won't have any meme cuts in it. No promises. Depends on my stupidity alone, I guess, right? Well, I hope you enjoyed this. Thank you.
The class is finished today.